Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I am here with Traycee Mayer. And Traycee has an incredible amount of experience as an executive in leadership positions, which she'll get into. And what I love is that she has followed her passion and now is focusing on family, as well as trying to talk about, or not trying, but talking about leadership and how to live your life the best way you can. So Traycee, how about you introduce yourself to us?
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Charisse. I'm excited to be here. And, I'm an executive coach currently. I've spent 40 years in leadership, mostly in hospitality, facility management, and venue management. Always in those roles that where you're deciding whether or not your family comes first, or you got to do your job and to get that paycheck. So all of the challenges I've had over the years have really gotten me to this place where I made a major move across the country 2 months ago to be near my son and my new grandbaby. So still coaching. Flourishing in this entrepreneurial environment. So I consider myself a grandmapreneur now. Don't know if that's a word, but that's what I'm gonna call it. So yeah.
That a lot. And you're still a mom because you moved next to him. Okay, so I love that you came on today. And first of all, you don't look like you are old enough to be 40 years in an executive leadership position. So kudos to you for that. But
thank you.
What I love is that you have been in that corporate world, which I know a lot of moms listening are. And like we've all come from that, not all, but a lot of us have come from that executive world where, it's a grind. And you said that you, when we were talking earlier, you were over several hotels, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So give me a day in the life, in that life, what it was like, and being a mom at the same time.
Yeah. So what we chatted about, which is, I haven't thought of this in years, but it was really funny. A couple of different stories. So one, I remember I was manager on duty. So even as a general manager for a hotel, I had, I partook in the program of general manager on duty, which means that everybody cycles through not only working your 50 or 60 hours, but you take on a whole weekend. So you can always bring your family, you get to stay in a suite, all of that sounds really great and glamorous, but it's not so much. But my son was 18 months old, and my husband at the time dropped our baby off at the hotel, and he was going to play with one of my assistants in the office. Because I had a client coming in. It was a Saturday afternoon. And all of a sudden, I'm meeting this client at the front desk. I've got a business suit on, and I'm shaking his hand. And here comes my baby running down the hallway on the first floor, butt naked. Running and jumping into my arms, and I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, well, this is my son, those are the kinds of things that you dealt with. And, when we ran out of diapers that weekend, sometimes he wore hand towels, for a diaper. So, of course, that was 35 years ago. But, there's other funny stories about, I'd pick him up from preschool and he'd be like telling his friends that, hey, that's my mom. She's the boss of the pool and all those rooms and everything, So he was always very proud of me. But I've since written a book and really kind of reflected back on what that was like to always make those decisions for the paycheck and for the career to support the family, as opposed to supporting the child and supporting the family. And, sometimes we end up losing those things. I didn't lose the child, but I lost the family, at that time. So yeah, it's really interesting to, look back and see all the sacrifices we made that I want to embrace the fact that we don't have to make those today. We really can move forward in our passions and still be great to our children and our grandbabies.
Yeah, I agree. So you wrote a book, and I see it in the background, right? It's called Leadership Contradiction. And so
Yes.
Tell us what that is. And tell us how you got to, what it is and what inspired you to write it.
Wow. So COVID, that whole time when we had so much time to think, and I know that's probably not even a popular word anymore to talk about that, so I'll fast forward, but I had a lot of time to myself. Where I lived in Southern California at the time, I was able to do a lot of hiking, mountain biking. That is what keeps me young, is I'm pretty active outdoors. But I was out hiking, I guess it's been 3 years now, coming up on 4 years ago, where I was walking by myself, and I had this kind of moment where something stopped me. I almost felt the presence of this like invisible hand in front of me, just stopping me. And I kind of looked backwards, I looked forward, and I just felt like I was at this moment in time where I was reflecting on, I was 55 at the time, and I was thinking, where have I come from, in my life, and where am I going? And I really thought that at that age that, I was going to be, just kind of unrolling with the rest of my life, that all my decisions had been made when I was younger. And it was just reflecting on the choices I made and where I was heading. And what I realized was that, everything was ahead of me still. And I had many, many decisions to make. So another weird thing was I ended up thinking that I needed to record those thoughts. So I picked out my phone out of my, little fanny pack thing, and I pressed record, and I just recorded my thoughts about the choices and such. So I didn't expect it to be a book at that time. Going forward another year and a half, I ended up in a couple of women seminars and workshops and things, and the question was asked that made me reflect back on that particular hike. And the person said, "Traycee, you need to write a book." And 9 months later, I wrote a book and published it last October. So it's a lot of different life lessons about being a mom and being an executive and leading people and doing that with love and with kindness. And just putting out my perspective of, I think what we can learn being females in this leadership executive role, but also in so many other roles. I mean, we are a leader in our family, we're a leader in our community. So it can really relate to a number of different things. So never thought I'd write a book, but here I am. So what a great experience. Yeah.
That's amazing. And, I'm in the same boat, because mine actually, it should be going live any day now. And
Yay.
It's one of those things, I know, I can totally relate to the process. But you really do have to follow your intuition and your calling. And the fact that, that's an incredible story, where to feel almost a hand stop you, and then for you to listen to it and follow through with what you should be doing. That's, I think, is amazing and wonderful.
Thank you.
So you talk about like employees, because obviously you manage several, and you mentioned how you don't feel like they should all be treated fairly, which is interesting because, a female in an executive position, I'm sure you've probably faced a lot of discrimination, correct?
Absolutely.
When I was put into my first leadership role, I found out this one person was making like 30 grand more than me, which was like an employee of mine. And then a guy was making, we won't even go there, a ridiculous amount more. And so, you go fight for it, but now you're in a leadership position and you're saying employees should not be treated fairly. So tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for bringing that up, because it's controversial, obviously, at first glance, right? I've spoken a number of times on this subject, and the first thing is, well, that's not, how could that be, And so I first qualify the comment by saying that when it comes to, HR and compensation and inclusivity and all of those things, that yes, of course, it should be treated. Everybody should be treated fairly, and that means equally, right? So let's get that out of the way. This is not a pro discrimination or anything like that. This is a pro uniqueness. This is pro embracing people's wonderful talents, because we all have them, and we all have them differently. Each human on this earth is created just a little bit differently. No two are the same. And what I found in my many years, decades of leadership, that way before, a lot of this inclusivity and DEI started, the last 5 years or so, that was really impactful. Back 30 years ago, I thought, wow, these people are all individually different. And if I gave them a little bit of time, a weekly one-on-one, 30 minutes, of my senior team, and really found out who they were, what motivated them, what their true talents are. Not always focusing on what their weaknesses were, but what can I help them with, and expanding the things that they do really well. And so that's really truly what I talk about when I say that people don't need to be treated fairly. They need to be treated as the unique individuals, because I feel if you hire the right person, and that doesn't mean that you can just, I want to stress the right person, because it doesn't mean you can hire anybody and you treat them nicely and you find out who they are and they'll be successful. That's not always the truth. Sometimes you do have to make those decisions in our personal life and professional life and make a change with people. But, if we hire the right person or we bring the right people into our lives, because I do think that things I talk about in leadership are absolutely translatable to our personal life and professional. But if we have the right people and we embrace their uniqueness and help them be seen, valued, and heard, because everybody needs that, then everybody can flourish. Yeah. So that's really a long explanation for why I think that we don't need to treat people fairly. I think that's less than what people deserve, including ourselves.
I agree. And I think I was a very, very young manager when I first started running a college, like very young.
Yeah.
And, so they think, well, your managers, well, if it's not working out, you just need to let them go. If it's not working out, let them go and stuff. And so that first school that I was over, we did let a lot of people go. And I don't think I really realized until I moved on and I opened another school and took over a different one that I was at a place for 2 years and we didn't have to let a single employee go because of what you just said. This is what they're good at. This is what they focus on. Let's give them that. And I was listening to a podcast, or not a podcast, the 10X is easier than 2X. And he talks about finding that person and making them irreplaceable, where they're probably going to go look at another place if they're that good. But if you treat them right and you make them happy, they're not going to leave. They're going to become loyal. And so because of that, you find out what their 20% is that they're really good at, and that's what they focus on. And then they hire somebody else to do the other 80%. And then once you get that person to do, because you're growing and growing and growing is the idea. If you're not growing, then you can't keep hiring people. But I like that. It's just like your kids.
Yeah.
I took my daughter to the library. We had to return some books and stuff. And she's like, I'm going on a hunt, Mom. And I'm like, what? And they have this whole scavenger hunt, And so I was like, we got to go. And instead of we got to go that time, I'm like, I'll help her find all these things. And she just had a grand time. And this is a child who does not like to go talk to adults at all. And so I was realizing if she couldn't find something, she was going to the librarian and, hey, where's this book? How do I find this? She will not go up to anybody and ask for anything. But the fact that she was like talking to those women, I'm like, I am not going to stop, halt this. And I think that's the same thing with employees. If you find something that they enjoy and passionate about, encourage, don't distract. I love that. That's great.
I love that you use the word encourage, because I feel like, particularly now being next door to my son and my grandbaby and my daughter-in-law, that my grandbaby is 14 months old, and I think about the time that I'm getting to focus on him and making him a priority, and I still feel like I was a great mom, of course, when my son was growing up, but I didn't get to have that focus that I have now of looking at him as this really intelligent being that is come into this world, and he may not talk now or speak in sentences, but he speaks in so many other ways. And I feel like, when babies are born and they're young, they're infants, they're toddlers, you need to really look at them in their eyes and see them and hear them and pay attention to them. And because it starts then. Yeah. And when we get employees, and of course now there's 4 generations of employees, but when I, through my whole career in leadership and management, I would get employees, and now I can look back and go, you know what, nobody listened to them. Yeah. Or maybe some of the people that they needed to listen to them. And so as a boss, as a leader, whether it's a community leader or an executive leader, we have to take the time to listen to people. There's been much of their lives where people were pushed aside and we are not paying attention. And so as leaders, we need to do that with the adults that are sitting in front of us, that yes, we're paying them a paycheck, but listen to them, see them. You know, I love, you know, doing 2:00 walks with my team. I've done that most of my career where, you know, I'll take the whole team on a Tuesday and Thursday afternoon at 2:00 and I'll say, we're going to, whoever wants to join us, take a 10-minute break. We're going to walk around the building outside, fresh air, and people just chat about anything. It doesn't have to be about work. It could be just, what are you doing this weekend? Or how are your kids doing in their soccer team, or what have you? And the results of paying attention to humans as a person and not as just the person who's in that position who gets paid X amount of dollars. Like, I think we miss the point of the uniqueness of those individuals. And it starts when the children are young. And, you know, I feel like I'm confirming that own belief in my own experience now of looking at my grandson in a different way and being able to really see this remarkable human that's developing and that is way smarter than we give them credit for. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, actually.
I was at a closing yesterday, and one of my clients, she had a 10-month-old baby, and the most adorable, happiest child ever.
Yeah.
Like, she's at that point where she's mimicking everything we do, right? So if you say, you know, or she's waving, or she's doing different things, and you liken that to an employee. So an employee, when they're hired, they're just like a baby. They're willing to do whatever usually. And, you know, so it's like, what can we do? How can we do that? And how can we help them? And I think we forget that, because sometimes when I hire somebody, you're so busy, it's just like, figure it out. I did, you know, and that is like the worst thing to do. That right there will just stifle them. And at what point with the baby, do they go from this happy-go-lucky to very insecure, you know? And that's the same thing with employees. If you don't give them what they're supposed to know, if you don't teach them, then they're just like, what, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting that that does happen that way. And you know, I was thinking about you made me think of yesterday. I was feeding my grandson lunch, and you know, he's eating green beans and a little bit of tomato sauce and chicken. He's just started eating a month or two ago. And a few minutes into him having lunch with grandma, he starts taking one green bean and then dropping it onto the floor. And this just started like a week ago. And now we're faced with, how do we respond to this? Do we say no? I take directions from my kids, you know, because they have all this new information, which is great. So he's like, just take the plate away and listen to him, look at him, and don't react, you know, don't say no, you know, because he's going to like that. And it's really interesting, because I do think of that as my opportunity to really interact. And I love that. Thank you for letting me talk about my grandbaby, but it's like, it really is. I look back 40 years and I could see how human behavior and how they end up in the workplace with either needing attention or not meeting requirements or being the superstars. Those all have to do with how we nurture people as they're growing up. And particularly now as a grandmapreneur, you know, I can put that focus on my grandson, and actually my son too. Yes, I'm still a mom. And at 35, he still needs a mom, and it's absolutely wonderful. But yeah, you also mentioned earlier about firing people. That used to be the businesses I would come into too, and I would take over a new position, and it would be like, I think there's like 20 people that need to be fired, and et cetera, see if you can do anything with them. Most often, the employees that excelled the greatest at the end of 6 months, whatever time period, were the ones that were having the most trouble. They just needed to be heard. They needed to be seen. They needed to be valued. Someone needed to take 15 or 20 minutes a week or 30 minutes and not keep saying, get back to me later, I'm busy, I got this. Because that's what we do as humans. We're all so busy, focused inside. We forget to focus on the people that are in front of us. And we could all help each other thrive exponentially. 10 times more, right? By giving someone the time of day and really listening to what they have to say.
I love that. And I used to come into the colleges, same type of thing, right? Oh, we have all these issues and we have this, and we were like one of the bottom performers. And there's 3 questions I would interview. It literally didn't matter if I had 100 employees or 200 employees. I interviewed every single employee. It took me a minute, but I'd say, tell me about yourself and what your interests are. The second one was, I tried to start out positive to gain some trust, but what are things that you like or that are going well right now? And then what are things that you wish that you could improve on or that you would like to change? Like if I gave you all of the power in the world of this school, what would you change? And they would be very open with me. And then I guess there are 4 questions. And the last one is, where do you want to be in a year and 3 years from now? Because a lot of them, like there's this one girl, she actually, she grew facial hair, right? Which is very, very rare. But by 5 o'clock, she like had a full 5 o'clock shadow. And her dream was to be able to get in front of the students and teach. She wouldn't let her teach because clearly of how she looked, right? And I'm like, okay, this is not okay. And so within a year, like it took a lot of fighting with corporate because they were so judgmental and discriminatory. But she got to teach, and she was probably one of our best teachers because she was so passionate about it. And so it's like trying to find out and getting feedback from the people that are on the front lines. That's what's important.
Absolutely. And I used to do this thing, which I still do now sometimes when I'm even coaching groups and teams of people, is I have this little form that I invented, I don't know how many years ago, but it's just all about me. And it's just, what's your birthday? What's your hometown? What's your favorite candy bar? Like some random stuff, but just things that people have so much fun with. And if I'm doing a multiple day training, a couple days into the training, everybody's soft drinks and their favorite candy bar and chips or whatever are on the table. And it's like, you really listen to me, like something so insignificant. And I don't think anything's insignificant in people's lives. I feel like everything is important. It's what we choose to pay attention to. And again, it's not going to necessarily make a salesperson sell $1 million the next week because you gave them something like a soft drink and a candy bar, but it'll get that dialogue started that I am paying attention, or we are paying attention as leaders, as business owners, as the head of our family, or the mom or the dad of our family. But it's it's just this overarching idea that we're all so busy and we're so used to moving at the speed of light that we don't take time for one another. And it does apply in every aspect of our life. And it gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of joy to spend some time with people. Sometimes you never know them. I do this actually with strangers now. I don't know. Since I've gotten, on this entrepreneur journey, I love to talk to people at Starbucks or in the grocery store line or what have you. And there's some funny little anecdotes about that in my book too, where I just talk about just making people feel better that day. Airlines, people at the airlines when I'm traveling on business, and just taking a moment to give a little note to somebody as I'm leaving the plane or whatever. And just, it's remarkable the responses that you'll get if you give somebody a nice comment or just a smile. So simple. We just, I would challenge everybody to do that more. Just a moment. Take a moment for people that are in your space. You don't have to know them. You just really don't. Yeah.
I love that, because that's something that now that I have more confidence, I think that my husband, it's funny because when we go out together, I'm not kidding, my book was life-changing for me. You always get more out of it than I think a writer will, but he watches me, and he looks at me like, what? For the same reason, because you're talking to someone, and then I walk by him, like, as we walk away, it's like, yes, I got her to smile. He's like, what are you? But it is, we are all so stressed. And since the C word, COVID, came about, people it's a different world now. And it's okay to be happy. It's okay to smile. It's okay to say thank you. It's okay to be grateful. And before, it was like 24/7. I honestly think that COVID was one of the best things that could have happened to us, because our stores aren't open 24/7 now. Our restaurants aren't, like, we actually get to have time with our families again. And I loved it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I probably would have never thought of moving across the country either, to a place that has snow on the ground. I actually moved here a few months ago, and there was snow on the ground, and I have a basement now, and things that just never thought of. But it's okay to be kind. I have this other chapter in my book called "Love is not a four-letter word." And I talk about how love got into this place where, and it was, I would say, pre-COVID. But just through my whole leadership journey, love was a thing that was what people did inappropriately at work, and how people were misbehaving in the corporate world and stuff. And now I'm saying, you know what, can't we love human beings? Like, isn't it okay to hug somebody at work? And, there's all these, again, I'm very in tune with HR and the, policies of different states and all of that. But just greeting someone, saying, hi, glad to have you back. I know you could have chose the company across the street, but you're coming into our place to work. Just being kind and you're loving in a human way. We just have gotten so far away from that, and we've let the negativity and the dark side of love take on this place where it's just not acceptable in the workplace. And I disagree with that. I feel that love is a human thing. And it's not a four-letter word in the frame of being a bad thing. It's a good thing. And we can love our fellow human beings, the people we work with, the people that we volunteer with, our own family. Some people aren't always easy to love, but like them anyways. It's just fun when we look at things differently, right? And you and I are just going to be great friends, I know, because it's those little things that just give us joy. And I can tell from looking at you too that it gives you joy. And yeah, I could go skipping away when I make someone smile, because it really does fill my heart. And I feel like sometimes that's the reason I was put here, is to pay attention to that.
And see, and I think, okay, so my son, he competed in this competition, right? Which he learned that Figaro song in like 3 weeks, and it's in Italian, right? Like Figaro. Okay, I'm not gonna listen or sing it, but like he learned it, and he's like, Mom, can you play the piano? And I look at him like, heck to the no, like no way, right? Yeah. So he found this lady in our neighborhood, and she worked her tail off and did a magnificent job. And I'm like, okay. So that night I hand him this gift card. I hand him the card. I say, write the card. And I bought a plant, and I said, go take the plant to her, tell her thank you, because she wouldn't let him pay her. Okay. We're 6 weeks later, right? He's graduating in 2 days. And so I'm like, Jacob, you've got to take this to her. And he wouldn't do it. And so my daughters were making these chocolate covered strawberries, and clearly the plant is dead now. And so we're not going to give him the plant. And these are beautiful strawberries. Good job, kids. We're going to use these for the neighbor, right? And so like, Jacob, get down here. And like, he couldn't write the card. Now I forget, he's got special needs. So him writing a card, he didn't even know how to do that. I'm like, okay, some other, right? No. But he's like, Mom, where do I sign my name? What do I say? And I'm like, oh, wow, this is why you've never done the card. Okay, let's start there. And so it's like, okay, we're going to. And I walked him through everything. I said, you are doing it tonight. And so we did. We drove him to there because I knew he wouldn't do it otherwise. And again, he's older, but mentally, like, these are things where he's still a little deficient, right? And so he goes and knocks on the door. And once he knocks on the door, he's fine. But he hands it to her, and then he comes out, and I said, okay, how did she react? Was she surprised? Because he's autistic, so he doesn't read language and facial expressions. So we're trying to teach him. Did she look, like, what did she say? Like, trying to work him through. And I said, how did you feel? And it's like little things like that, that if we can teach our kids, she worked so many hours practicing that song that I could never have done in a million years. Like, give me 3 years, I could probably have done what she did. And so it's amazing. But teaching our children to be grateful, and the same thing, teaching our employees to be grateful. And you talk about something which you kind of started to touch on, that you say that, or what do you say to those who say that love and kindness will distract you from meeting positive bottom lines? I just wanted to read it. So, what would you say? Because love and kindness has been taken away for a little bit. And so is that a distraction, or is it not?
Oh gosh. So absolutely, it's not a distraction. Love and kindness is the key to unlocking people's connection with what they're doing, their connection with each other. Love and kindness is the way that we embrace what we have, the blessings we have in this world. It's I can't say enough about it. It's taking, again, a moment for someone. I love that you took the time with your son, and it's okay that sometimes we push people to do things. The same with employees or children or what have you, but taking the moment to go, okay, well, maybe we need to approach this differently. But that that is giving love and kindness for your son and for also for the neighbor. It's like it becomes this exponential thing that gives when I take a moment to spread love and kindness. And on that thing, as far as the bottom line, yeah, if what I have found is I've had great success. The more that I've been in tune with paying attention to who people are, the more explosive our bottom lines have been. I like to talk a lot about Mary Barra, who's the CEO of General Motors. You know, she took over that company when it was bankrupt and ready to fold. And her idea of sharing love and kindness as an executive with, you don't know how many hundreds of thousands of employees, turned that company around in a year. What a great story. And that's a financial bottom line. But what she talks about is not how great she did with financial results, but she talks about how great she did with the people, that she helped them embrace love and kindness. So yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I don't think we talk about it enough. And like you said, writing my book, that is the subtitle, you know, the Leadership Contradiction, which is me calling out leaders, including myself in younger years. But it's choosing a path of love and kindness. So it's that dichotomy of, yes, we have to make the bottom lines. Yes, we have to be the person who's making decisions and being the boss, but that doesn't exclude us from being kind. In fact, the kindness is what gets us the results way better than what we would have gotten otherwise. So thanks for asking me that.
No, when you feel like you're just a number and it doesn't matter, then like that's my daughter. Like she is so shy, and if she misses school, she's like, "Mom, nobody will notice." And I'm like, "Oh, that's." If somebody is there encouraging her and making her feel good, then obviously, I mean, there's a difference, and it's the same thing for employees. It's the same thing here in your home. It's anywhere. We all just want to be loved. And a hug, I'm sorry, human touch. It is a natural thing to want human touch, and we don't. So amen to that.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to imagine yourself sitting on a park bench.
Okay.
And on the end of it is your 19-year-old self. What advice would you give that person? And I'm not saying regret, because some people misunderstand this. It's what advice. It can be business, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual. I don't care. What's one piece of advice that you want your 19-year-old to know?
What a fabulous question. So I saw myself sitting there, and at 19, I would have been at a university, and I have a picture sitting on the bench with my grandmother. Oh, wow. And actually she ended up passing the following year. So it's a pretty profound picture for me. But what I would say to my 19-year-old self is be who you are. Bottom line, if you have love in your heart and kindness, if you have talent for doing certain things a certain way, do it that way. Don't try to fit in any other boxes for anyone else. And I don't say that with regret, but I say that with this hindsight that at my age now as a grandma, it's like I've come full circle back to myself, where now I don't care what other people think, you know, but it's taken me my whole life to get there. And it's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of mishaps, a lot of slippery slopes where I've made decisions that were kind of dangerous in my life. And I do talk about some of that in my book, but it's like, you know, the mistakes, you know, that we make, or we think we make, when in reality we learn from them, right? But I don't think we have to learn or we have to commit every mistake in the world there is. I don't think any of us have time for that, right? But we can learn from others. So what I would teach myself in that park bench or at that moment, or others listening, is just be who you are. Don't try to fit into other people's descriptions of who you should be, because we're all unique and meant to be that way. And that's where our talent is. That's where our success lies, is being ourselves authentically.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
I would probably give the same advice: is stop worrying about what other people think, you know, your life.
Yeah.
You want. No, that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they find you?
Great. Yeah. They can get a hold of me on LinkedIn, Traycee Mayer, and it's Mayer. Or they can send me an email directly, Traycee@buleadership.com. And that my name, Traycee, is TRAYCEE at BEYOU leadership.com. And I'd love to talk with you. I do 30-minute consultations for free. So I'd love to talk about anything you want to talk about. Yeah, it's fun. I listen professionally, but I love to do that too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it has been a true delight. Thank you so much for coming on today.
And thank you for having me. I look forward to spending more time with you down the road.
I agree. All right, Unbreakable Moms, if you have, you're kind of struggling in life right now, or you're trying to figure things out, or you have a whole bunch of people that you're managing, I want you to take a pause and do what Traycee said, is get to know them individually and see what they need and how can you reach them so that they can be better employees, better colleagues, and better performers. So go make it a great day.